He shall come with trumpet sound. Oh, may I live in him be bound. Rest in his righteousness alone. Faultless to stand before the throne. On Christ the solid rock I stand. All other ground is sinking sand. All other ground is sinking sand. Please be seated. Our hymn of invitation will be number 380, 380, Just As I Am.
I put this up here just as a case I had forgotten to have it announced about the Knapsack for Kids program. To remind everyone to bring the small packs of cereal for that program, and I remembered to have it announced. So we do it on Thursday mornings over at the Armory at 8:30. So if you can help out with that by bringing some cereal or even donating a little money that we could go out and purchase some, that would be great to help fill that need here in our community. On January the 15th, 2009, U.S. Air Flight 1549 was leaving New York's LaGuardia Airport. And it was headed for Seattle after an intermediate stop in Charlotte, North Carolina. And shortly after the A320 Airbus took off out of LaGuardia, it hit a flock of Canadian geese. And this is a computer-generated image of it. You can see over here, this engine is flaming out, and if I remember right, both of them of the engines flamed out. The pilot actually turned around, was trying to get back to LaGuardia to land on one of the runways, but he didn't make it, and they ended up ditching in the Hudson River, and this became known as the Miracle on the Hudson. And then Captain Chelsea Sullenberger retired not long after that and wrote his memoirs, and then that was the basis for the movie with Tom Hanks playing the lead role. And there were 155 people on board. All 155 survived. There were some injuries, some of them serious, but it was considered miraculous just getting that plane around and landing it where nobody was killed. And even coming in on water, a lot of people don't realize at that speed it would be just about like landing on concrete almost. Now here's the thing, when put yourself in that place as the plane is turning and it hits those geese, they get sucked into the engine. That's never good. It wrecks and tears up the fans, and then it can cause flame outs and fires and other things. But the situation is now looking pretty hopeless, and it just seems to keep going from bad to worse. Hey, we've hit some geese. Oh, great. Now our engine's on fire. Oh, wait, the other engine's on fire. We're losing power. But a cool, calm flight crew can take that situation that keeps getting worse and still be able to pull through. And that's what happened here. And as Christians, hope is something that we need to be hanging on to and growing in. Just like the people on Flight 1549 had to do. Keeping the hope that they're going to somehow come out of this situation. Somehow they're going to survive, somehow either they're going to get back on solid ground or they're going to make an emergency landing where they will be safe. Now, in this series that we've been doing about Who Am I Becoming, we looked a couple of weeks ago at Christian love and how Christians need to be showing the love of God. And keep in mind, when we show that love of God, it's not a love that lets everybody do what they want. We just accept everything. It's the love of God on His terms. What we see in the Scriptures, that we turn people, we present the gospel and turn them in a direction where they are now walking with God and they are living lives that are righteous and that are approved by God, that are putting sin away from them. And then we looked at being a person at peace, having that internal peace, even though there may be conflict going around. We have a nice little peaceful community here, but there's people here that are dealing with physical ailments, illnesses. They've got family problems, job problems that rob them of peace, but God wants us to be a person of peace. And then last week we looked at self-control. Paul told Titus that as Christians we need to be sober-minded, that we need to be in control of our thoughts and things like that at all times. And that's what being sober-minded, being a person of self-control is. And so today let's look at becoming a person of hope. Because for many, when it comes to our hope in Jesus, to them, We might as well be hoping in the Tooth Fairy or Santa Claus, because they can't understand why someone would want to put such deep trust in Jesus, someone who lived thousands of years ago, if he even lived. But what they don't understand is we're actually transforming our lives to become like Jesus. As we are looking at transforming our lives, Romans 8:28 tells us that God is transforming us into the likeness of His Son. That is His ultimate goal for us, is to be more like Jesus. And in Hebrews chapter 6, if you're open to there, you'll notice he is actually, the writer there is talking a lot about Abraham and the hope that Abraham had that came from God. And if you're looking in there now, verse 17, he tells us there that God, determining to show more abundantly to the heirs of promise the immutability of His counsel, confirmed by an oath, that is, by two immutable things, and that word immutable and immutability, those are just fancy words that mean unchanging. So you could read this to be that by two unchanging things, in which it is impossible for God to lie, that we might have strong consolation who have fled for refuge to lay hold of the hope that is before us. See, the Hebrew writer is talking about how God made a promise to Abraham, and it's not just any promise, it is a promise that God backed up with an oath. Now, at this point when God made the promise, keep in mind, Abraham's 75 years old. Abraham, you're going to have a child. Oh, but it's not going to happen for another 25 years. You're going to be 100. And your wife, well, she'll obviously be 90. And I'm sure Abraham had no problem figuring out that math. That, wait a minute, aren't we a little bit past the childbearing years? And if you remember, Sarah laughed and got called out for it. But I want us to look now at becoming a person of hope and what biblical hope really means, because that is exactly what our hope is based on. First of all, is the character of God. You look at verses 9 through 20 of chapter 6, and those encourage our own hope. They should be stimulating our faith and our hope. Then there's three things here I want us to look at right here in this little passage that we should be building our hope on, that would encourage our hope and faith. Number one is God's dependable word. Now have a look at this in its context. You'll see that God swore by an oath. Now when we go to court, we raise our right hand. We swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. And then, as far as I know, a lot of courts will still throw in, so help you God, or so help you God. Now, when God gave an oath to Abraham, since we swear oaths by someone or something greater than ourselves, how is God going to do that? So help me? Well, that's basically what he did. Made an oath to Abraham that he was going to take care of this, that he was going to have a child, that he was going to be the father of a great nation. And then we have God's dependable nature. How many of us know somebody that if they say, yeah, I promise I'm going to come over to the house tomorrow and I'm going to mow your yard, we're going to say, yeah, I'll believe that when I see it. Yeah, I'm going to be to work on time tomorrow. I'll be there at 9 o'clock sharp. Okay, yeah, let's see, it's 9:20. Where is he? Haven't heard from him. But see, with God, we know what he says is dependable. That's why he swore by himself, by his oath, by himself. We may know people that are not very dependable, not very punctual. But God is going to be someone who's dependable and will move at the right time. And then we have God's dependable Son. He sent Jesus to die on the cross for us. Jesus came, was born into this world, lived a life where he could fulfill the law, and then he went to the cross, was buried, and was resurrected, all for us, for the forgiveness of our sins. And we can trust in that. We can have that hope based on that. See, Hebrews chapter 6, if you back up all the way to verse 9, you can see there that he's talking about the heirs to the promise. God did all this so that Abraham's heirs might know that dependability of God's word. Look at verse 18, that it is the true believers who are going to be the heirs of God, that are going to be the recipients of this particular promise. And then notice, too, he uses the analogy of an anchor. You see, for hope to be real, it's got to be anchored in something real. It's got to be anchored in something that is firm. And a lot of people who don't put their hope in Jesus today just don't understand that. We look at hope as something more like a fairy tale fantasy. You know, this coming season, football season, Nick Saban will be starting his 11th or 12th year as the head coach at Alabama. Now, I can hope all I want that I can be the head football coach at Alabama, but I just don't think it's going to happen. Oh, hey, a guy can dream, can't he? But I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon. But it could. Hey, Photoshop's a great thing. It can do wonders with it. But when it comes in contrast to God's dealings with Abraham, we're told that God wanted to make this promise to him, so he backed it up. It is reliable. It is something we know that God is going to deliver on. We take an oath, remember, to remove any doubt about what I'm going to tell you is the truth. We take an oath before we testify in court. Constitutionally, the president has to take an oath at the beginning of his term or an affirmation. And then they usually ad-lib the "So help me God." That's not actually in the oath, but they'll ad-lib it and throw it in there. So help me God. And remember, that's pretty serious when you say, "So help me God." A lot of people will use that line not really thinking about what it means. Oh, I swear to God, if you're late one more time, you're fired. Well, if you are actually going to do that, you better fire the person if he comes in late. Because right there, you've taken God's name, and that's really what the commandment means about taking God's name in vain. Is when you make those kinds of oaths and rash pledges in God's name and don't take it serious. If you don't carry it out, most of the time for us it's a figure of speech, but God takes it serious. And God's promise and God's oath are two things we can rely upon. We can base our hope on those two things. They don't change. God does not change. His word does not change. His oath does not change. He gives us that assurance and that dependability. And we can hope in it. And it is something for sure. Two immutable things, the two things that cannot change are his oath and his promise. The unchanging God, unchanging hope that we have in him. People change. How many of us have known someone that seemed very level-headed, great Christian person, and then they start hanging out with people that draw them away? And we say, wow, he should change. How many of you have known maybe a marriage situation? Husband and wife get married, and then before you know it, one or both of them has really changed. Boy, I know a couple situations where it seemed really nice while they were dating, and then got married, and in one case, the husband just all of a sudden, it was like on a dime. Became a rather cruel, rather uncaring kind of husband. And I've known some wives that have done the same thing. They change. God doesn't change. He stays firm. We have this, one writer called it a double chain of God's hope and of God's promise and God's oath. You can see this here, where you've got someone down here in despair saying, I just don't know if I can depend on that rope. I've been let down before. And here over here, you got two rescuers. One's God's promise, one's God's oath. So don't be afraid. Take hold of the rope and don't let go. There are two strong rescuers securing it. And then down here we have Hebrews chapter 6, verse 18. That we are holding on to that. That is what our hope is set on. Is God's promise and God's oath. And at the end of Hebrews chapter 6, notice the allusion to the cities of refuge. Those who have fled for refuge. See, in the Old Testament, remember there were 6 cities of refuge. And if you accidentally killed someone, and you could get to the city of refuge before a relative of that dead person got you, you were safe. You had to stay there, though, until the high priest died. You'd have a chance to get your case heard before the high priest. But as long as that high priest was alive, you had to stay there. And if you think about this particular analogy that he uses, it also is kind of a sidebar. Blows a hole in the whole idea of once saved, always saved. Because if I've accidentally killed someone here, now I'm on the run, I get to a city of refuge. Okay, I get my case heard, I'm found innocent, but I have to stay in the city of refuge until the high priest dies. But I think, I'm kind of missing mom and missing dad and the home front there, so I think I'm going to sneak out here and run home for a quick visit. And what happens now? I'm fair game for that family of that person that I accidentally killed. I don't have the protection of the city of refuge. So let's make an analogy to the Christian. I become a Christian. I come into the city of refuge, so to speak, into Christ. I'm baptized into Christ. And I'm living my life as a Christian. But then I decide, I want to go back. I want to go over here with my friends for one last beer bash. Or I want to go and just have this little affair, and now I'm outside the city of refuge. I'm outside of Christ. I have stepped out. Now what's going to happen? If If I die in that situation, I'm lost. Just like that person who left the city of refuge back then. As long as we stay in the city of refuge, we're safe. As long as that person stayed in the city of refuge, they were safe. And then we have to also, why is this not advancing? There we go. We also have to keep in mind the fact that because of sin, because of falling short of the glory of God, we're all hopeless outside of Christ. That's just, and that goes for the Christian who goes outside of Christ. Becoming a Christian is a decision, a choice that you make. Staying there is a choice or a decision that you make. And as a Christian, remember that the anchor has got to be held on to something. That hope is the anchor that we need in this life. We have Hebrews 6:19 up here. The anchor of the soul is going to be our hope that we attach to Christ and have attached to God. Just like an anchor keeps a ship from moving. If we're on a ship and we're getting close to an island, we might drop anchor. Okay, we're going to send a landing party out to look for fresh water or whatever. Or maybe there's a storm out there. So I want to get over here by it. I don't want to get too close to get thrown up onto the rocks, but I want to be close enough where we can be safe, so we're going to drop anchor. And we're going to let the anchor hold us there and hold us steady. And that's where our hope becomes like an anchor. We have hope to anchor our souls to Christ. Now just imagine that ships in the water. What if that anchor is holding? That'll keep the ship from crashing into the rocks of the storm. That'll keep the ship from drifting out to sea. And during storms and trials of life, what's your anchor? You know, your anchor might be going home to mom or going to a friend or a human. But what if that human maybe isn't there? What if they don't prove to be the anchor that you were hoping they would be or that you thought they would be? We stay close to the Lord. Our hope in Christ is sure and steadfast. We know He's not going anywhere. Because of the nature of God and because of what Christ has accomplished, we know that we can still rely and hope and keep our hope there in Christ. A couple of important things to keep in mind with this anchor. Number one is the construction or the material that it's built out of. Now, my dad and I, one time, I was probably 6 or 7, we went out to the base and there was a lake. They're not a real big lake, maybe size of 3 or 4 football fields. As the lake goes, that's not that big. And we could rent little boats. Didn't have engines on them, just had oars. Dad would row us out and we'd fish. The anchor for that boat was about a 20-foot section of chain with a coffee can filled with cement. Now, on a lake like that, for a little boat like that, that's fine. In fact, I can remember throwing it out in a couple places. I looked down, I could see it hitting bottom. It was pretty clear. But then years later, when Debbie and I took our cruise on the Carnival Conquest, which I forget the weight of the ship, but I know it had between passengers and crew about 5,000 people on it, I'm going to want something a little more sturdy than a chain with a coffee can and cement. We're going to need a bigger anchor made out of some really good solid steel. You know, the wood that these pews and things are made of would not work as an anchor for that. So it's got to be made out of the right material, and then that anchor's also got to be in the right location. In other words, you can see here where this anchor is lying on the ground of the bottom of the lake or whatever body of water that is. It's got to reach something, a rock or something on the bottom to hold it. There were places in that lake that my dad and I went out that it was deeper than the chain we had. And I could look down and just see the coffee can suspended on the end of the chain. Did it do us any good? No, we just drifted right along because it wasn't anchored to anything. And if your anchor is not holding on to something, or if it's holding on to something that's not strong, it's really not going to do a whole lot of good. So our anchor, our hope has got to be put in Christ. Look at verse 19. It paints a picture of the ship being like the soul of a man. That's our soul. The trials and tribulations that we face are going to be like the storms that a ship hits at sea. And we can get flopped around, or we can seek shelter, a port, and drop anchor and be safe and be held into one place rather than getting knocked around a lot. So what are we going to do? That's a decision each one of us has to make when we're in those kinds of situations. These anchors, remember, need to latch on to something that won't move. Christ is immovable. He is not going anywhere. And how do we know that Christ isn't going anywhere? Well, remember, we go back to God's promise. God told Another thing we have to remember is about this chain is it can be broken. Chains can, no matter how thick and how strong and how heavy they can still break. Now, there's nothing from God's end that's going to come and break this chain of our hope. What does break it is on our end. We get apathetic. We get maybe indifferent. We just get where, it's just not that important to me anymore. And then the chain breaks. And then we start drifting. The anchor's still over there. Christ is still over there. But we've drifted away. And we are out there on the waves being tossed back and forth. Remember, we've got the promises and the oath of God, a double chain. Doubling a knot or doubling a chain, doubling a rope, that makes it even stronger. And that's what God wants us to have, is that strong hope that we hang on to all the time. And then Jesus blazed the trail for us. The connection between Christian hope and Christ, who is our exalted high priest, is a major theme of this letter to the Hebrews. And remember, it was written to people who had come out of Judaism and were now looking at going back because they were being persecuted so bad. Then look back at verses 19 and 20 where he says, this hope we have as an anchor of the soul, both sure and steadfast, which enters into the presence behind the veil, where the forerunner has entered for us, even Jesus, having become the high priest forever, according to the order of Melchizedek. Now, this is kind of if you can see it here, sort of an outline of what would of an artist's conception of the Holy of Holies. And Jesus entered as a forerunner. He went in ahead of us. And he was different, though, than the Old Testament high priest. The high priest could only go into this little room that represented heaven, and he had to do it by himself. He couldn't go in with anyone else. And when God gave Abraham the security of his person, his purpose, and his pledge, all this is giving us the same thing with Christ. He gives us Jesus. He gives us purpose, his purpose for salvation. And then his pledge. The Old Testament priest couldn't take anybody else into that Holy of Holies, but Jesus, is not just in a room representing heaven. He's in heaven. He is at the right hand of God, where eventually he'll take all of us. So it's even better than the Holy of Holies. In fact, better is a key word in the book of Hebrews that the writer uses there, comparing that better covenant we have with the covenant that they had under the Old Testament. And then God gives us another security. Jesus, remember, is our high priest. He has given us his priest, Christ, as our high priest. Our anchored soul in God's mind is secured. You ever notice that when the Holy of Holies, that when the priest went in there, he had that veil? And then remember, when the veil split at Christ's death, it split from the top all the way down. And this veil wasn't just a little curtain like you would have in your house. This was a thick veil. The breaking wasn't anything man could have done. It was heavy, and it split from the top down, showing that it came from heaven. That split came because God had wanted it to. So how is life going now? What's your anchor? You have that double chain of God's promise and oath that you're relying on. Are you anchored in Christ? Or is your anchor just out there somewhere drifting? You're hoping it's going to catch on to something. Or do you have it already caught on to Christ? Where is it? Where is your hope? Are you in a shelter, in a fort, in Jesus, where the storms can't get you? How about plugging into this new hope if you haven't done so? Being baptized into Christ to have your sins forgiven. Or if you've drifted away, toss that anchor back out and get a hold of that hope again. Get it anchored where it needs to be in Jesus Christ. And if we can help you this morning, if we can help you to get that anchor set where it needs to be and get the ship righted, we'll offer that opportunity here in just a moment. Make sure you are right with the Lord, that your soul is right, so if you are called, you can go and have that home in heaven with Him for eternity. And if we can help you, let us know as we stand together and as we sing. Just as I am without one plea, but that thy blood was shed for me, and that thou didst me come to thee, O Lamb of God,
just as I am.